I am here as a father. I have a 9-year-old daughter and a 12-year-old daughter. And I believe my job as a husband is to protect my wife and my kids in that order. Then I go to work, and then I'm involved in politics, and then I play golf. Right? Golf is pretty low, sadly, on my list of priorities. But when I started to hear about Common Core back in September, I heard Race to the Top funds. I heard CCSS, LMNOP. I don't know, right? I don't have the pedigree. But what I did know is that the power of the internet, love it or hate it, Google, love it or hate it, you start Googling things, you find so much information, and I got overwhelmed. I didn't know what the truth was. So I came and attended an event just like this back in November. There was an event I went to, and then again, I met Mary, and I dug into this. And then I started looking at my kids' report cards, and on my 7th grader's report card, at the bottom it said copyright Pearson Education. So proof's in the pudding, right? My 4th grader comes home with a Common Core math book and a Common Core English Language Arts, I believe is what it is. When I was there, it was just English. I don't know where the language arts comes in. Again, I'm not going to get into that. I discovered Common Core is like an octopus. No offense to octopuses. It has 8 legs, 10 legs. There's content. There's the way that it's taught. There's the legislation behind it. There's the money. There's so many pieces and parts to this. Again, I kind of got confused. And I said, look, what I know are facts and figures. What I know is data. So we're going to talk about tonight in a few slides. As a matter of fact, I stole one of Mary's slides. So you may see a little bit of redundant information. I apologize for that. If I could figure out, there we go. We're talking about data security and privacy, the value of data, right? Why are these guys collecting this data? Why does it matter? Right? Scarily, they're collecting it on you too, because there's questions in there about your parents. So it's not just the kids, it's the parents as well. Okay? A lot of red flags. What is big data and how it's used? What identity theft? What are the schools collecting? Who has access to it once it's collected? Are there any safety or security procedures for this data and the national database? So data security and privacy. In today's world, we assume we have a level of security and privacy. Right? We all are assuming we have that level of security and privacy. Regularly as adults, we turn that information over to companies. A couple of examples. We have a HIPAA standard out there for healthcare. To go get my teeth cleaned, I got to sign a document to get my teeth cleaned for healthcare records. PCI is processing your credit card information. Every time you swipe that little card, there's a security center to make sure that gets safe. Financial records out there. There's Sarbanes-Oxley for publicly traded companies. I don't know if anybody here is in corporate finance, but if you are, I'm sorry you're familiar with them. They're all parallel IT standards to those things that I'm intimately familiar with. I will not bore you with a single one of them. But as adults, we have a perception that we're relatively protected with the data we turn over. Okay? The value of data. IT World, I know it's an IT magazine, a survey by Unbound ID and Compass Intelligence reveals that executives will be willing to pay up to $124 per person to get their hands on your actual personal information, or about 100 times more than they're willing to pay for anonymized data. Okay? AJ, I'm going to pick on you for a minute. AJ, I can tell you're a white male, you're losing your hair, odds are you're married, odds are you're between 45 and 55, you live in the Midwest, you probably go to church, you lean conservatively. That data is worth $124. Okay? That's just, you know, I'm not going to pick a woman, no way. Thank you for laughing, by the way. I tried to have a little bit of jokes in here. Now this is the FTC, right? Okay, again, reputable organization. Protecting consumers, especially vulnerable consumers, such as children, against identity theft and its consequences is a critical component of the Commission's consumer protection mission. I want you to remember that for a second. Protecting our children is part of their mission. So, what is big data? I read this book about 1.5 years ago, The Power of a Habit, great book, a good friend of mine gave it to me. It talks a little about the psychology of a habit, risk, rewards, incentives, stuff like that. I got kids. I'm the middle manager in corporate America. You know, I've got teams. Good book about a power of a habit. What Charles Dunn gives us is an example of Target Corporation. Target has a little guest ID card that you swipe every time you go through Target. Tracks your purchases. Target hired a mathematician and figured out that there are 25 products in Target Corporation's new baby section that are the most profitable products in Target's product line. Mathematician figured out if you buy 5 of these 25 products, there's an 87% chance you're pregnant. 5 out of 25, 87% chance you're pregnant. Okay, there's a father, story in this book. Father comes home from work, he sees a Target ad, it's addressed to his 16-year-old daughter. Everything in this particular ad is about being pregnant, new babies, diapers, all the stuff that goes with it. Dad freaks out, calls the manager, local Target store, feels sorry for this guy. Angry fathers, not fun to deal with, almost as much fun as angry mothers. Again, another joke, thank you very much. Local manager doesn't know what's going on, tells him to call corporate IT, or corporate Target. Says, look, we're very sorry about this, it's a mistake, blah, 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 blah. 2 days later, 16-year-old daughter tells Dad I'm pregnant. Target knew before Dad did because of this data. Okay? That's the power of big data, and that's what I want you to understand. So Mary can talk about amazing pieces and parts, and this thing's an octopus, right? But as a father, you're collecting data on my daughters without my consent, without my wife's consent, without her knowledge. Look what this data did for Target. Sales in 2002 went from $44 to $67 billion. That's with a B, ladies and gentlemen. Billion. This is 5 data points. This isn't 400 data points. Okay? When I first started learning this, it was a longitudinal database. Spent 6 years in the Air Force. Longitude, latitude, that's navigation data. Anybody here familiar with aviation or nautical information? Longitudinal really is a map. This is a database mapping information. At its core, the children are mapping information about our children and about us. Identity theft. I want to bring all this together. Work with me here. According to the FTC, recent studies suggest child identity theft is more prevalent than even identity theft against adults. Children are being targeted because their credit history is non-existent. Anybody here ever write a credit check on a 9-year-old? Who would think to? You wouldn't think to do that. They've got a social security number, they got a name, they got an address. They can have a credit. Okay? So guess what's happening now? This massive database is being collected. The #1 target for identity thefts, kids under the age of 18. Guess what we're building? This massive target. No Target Corporation needed, but you get my point. Right? That's what's happening here. What are the schools collecting? We've heard 400 data points. I heard that. This national education data model. Well, now you're kind of talking my area of expertise. I can't talk to content. I can't talk to methodology. Sorry, I'm not an educator. But now you're talking national data models. I get data models. Kids will be asked 400 plus questions. Small sample of these questions that got me fired up. Allergies, diseases, language, and dialects spoken. This is where I got a little, why do you need dialects spoken? What does it matter? Non-school activity involvement. What does that mean? Meal type. Screen name. Last name. Voting status? Hello. Right? Marital status, even members' causes of death. They don't even know that. Here's another small list. Again, subset of 400 that got me personally fired up. Right? Child's name, household income, timeout. What? Household income? Way wrong answer. Way wrong answer. Religious affiliation? Now we've officially tilt, stop, taking the kids out of school. Okay? Come to find out, we could opt our kids out of this kind of stuff. That's a conversation a little down the road. But this is some of what is being asked. Back to Target example, 25 questions, 5 of them were true, 87% success rate with pregnancy. That's what big data can do, guys. So when you hear this big data term, that's what we're talking about. So how does this work? much to Mary, I said, we're going to overlap a little bit. Local schools, district level, state level, this goes to a company called In Bloom. Guess who funded In Bloom? Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. Shocker, right? Shocker. Today, KNBC, or KSHP News 41 here in Kansas City, ran an article about 5-10 seconds long. They ran an 8-page story. 35 states went to Arnie Duncan and said, we're not going to give you the state score results. Okay, standardized tests. He said, and we will not create a national database. You don't have to. It's done. Of course, the federal government will sit here and tell you every single time, we're not creating a national database. Well, they don't have to. It's part of the architectural design. Okay, so you have McGraw-Hill, Pearson Education, Bill and Melinda Gates, Department of Education, all have access to this, and the companies are listed so many, I couldn't put them on a slide. Okay, I did throw this one company up here, Corbis Images. Anybody here in the graphics art business? Okay, Corbis Images was started in 1989 by who? Bill Gates. Bill Gates knew in 1989, eventually, encyclopedias will be non-existent. Some of us on my age might remember getting an encyclopedia on CD-ROM. What Bill Gates did is he started a company called Corbis Images, went around the world to all the great museums and said, I would buy the digital rights to your great pieces of art. He paid the Louvre $10 million for the digital rights to the Mona Lisa. Oh, okay. Early 90s, who cares? Today, kids are getting MacBooks, Google Chrome laptops, iPad 2s in schools. All that content is being put there by one of two companies who pay royalties back to Corbis Images. And we follow that logic. Every time the image of Christ the Redeemer in Rio de Janeiro, you know, the big guy, right? Cristo Redentor, Portuguese. Bill Gates gets kickback every single time one of those electronic textbooks gets published to the tablet that we so desperately want our kids to have. That, in my humble opinion, ladies and gentlemen, is the gold mine. Bill Gates became massively wealthy by selling software. Bill Gates put $5 billion into this. The guy is so wealthy, he cannot afford to bend over and pick up a $100 bill because it's literally not worth his time. $5 billion to him is not a lot of money. What is going to come out of that from a residual point of view is incredible. Anyways, so who has access to your data? These guys. If Target can make $32 billion in 8 years, what can these companies do with your children's data? What I want you to get, Target is just taking your card at one point in time, a single point in time, swipes that card, you bought 5 items, you're 87% pregnant. It's a one-time transaction. This is every single year from prenatal to 20 years of education. In the corporate world, that's the best data set you can get. You've got kids who mom and dad have told, listen to your teachers. Listen to the policeman. Listen to the fireman. Listen to your pastor. Listen to insert person of choice. Sit them down at the age of 6, 7, 8, 9 years old in front of a computer, do the test. They're going to do the test. They're going to do it because we have told our kids to do it. Ironically enough, that trust is now being betrayed, in my opinion. For many reasons. Number one, we didn't know as parents. And that's one is enough. This is a really accurate diagram. I know it's tough to see. A lot of boxes, a lot of lines. I've got all this referenced just like Mary does. A lady put together a 9-minute YouTube video that actually explains all the interlinkings of all the corporations and quote-unquote follow the money that we always hear about on TV. That's what the diagram actually looks like. I watched the video 3 times. Yes, I spent 27 minutes watching a 9-minute video 3 times. And I'm going, holy smokes, this is insane. Are there safety or security procedures for this data? In the world today, we assume we have a level of security and privacy. Again, that's an adult statement, right? That's somebody who's over the age of 18. Again, the examples here I showed you. So the question is, what about our kids? There's no standards. There are no audits. There are no security checks on our children's data. This company, In Bloom, has already been hacked. Data from a New York City school has already been compromised. all of their data, all of their health records, and all their attendance records, because, hey, if we can put in Common Core data, why not put in everything else? Makes our lives as administrators easier. It was all compromised already. Happened last fall. Identity theft. Recent studies suggest child identity theft is more prevalent, even more than adults. Children are being targeted. Remember this. I cannot drive this point home enough. They are building not a federal database. They're right. The federal government's not doing this. A national database. And our own Federal Trade Communications is telling us the biggest target for identity theft is kids. To me, 2 plus 2 doesn't equal 4 right there. Mary talked about this slide here, data-driven education. The interesting thing for me is I saw AT&T. You'll see, if you do dig into this, you're going to see national level companies, IBM, AT&T's. The pot of money here is endless because it's taxpayer, because it's you and me. They feel our pockets have no bottom. The executive summary, Mary went over this, talked about the stakeholders, talked about leaders in business, philanthropy, and education must continue to play a key role in ensuring the success. This bothers me, right here. Notice who's first and who's last. Business, philanthropy, and then education. Wow, talk about priorities out of order. There's no such thing as unidentifiable data. Sometimes you'll hear people say, well, normalize the data. I'm sorry, I did the wrong slide. Dr. Laura Weiss said, using just 7 demographic attributes, we're able to accommodate in Kentucky's data system, precisely match 86% of the students, with just 7 data elements. There's no such thing as normalized data. It doesn't exist. That's how good our statisticians really are. Guess when those statisticians were actually educated and trained under the old system. But I stopped. Prohibit a federal database. They're right. There won't be a federal database. There'll be a national database. So just, again, the wordsmithing of this, right, gets very, very specific, as Mary has pointed out many, many times. De facto national databases, that's what we're talking about. Department so they can choose to link their data systems. Federal government will not play a role, but would have access to the data systems. Wow, isn't that a little tricky piece of information right there? I don't know, that might be a lie by omission, but again, I'm not going to give you the opinions of that. Performance data. I don't know what performance data is, guys. Anybody performance data? Probably not, right? What are they collecting? What are they doing with this? And why do they need it? State education agencies submit education performance data from kindergarten through 12th grade. Approximately 180 data groups. Several data elements logically connected. Right, I logically connected AJ as a white male losing hair.
I think you need to define. Seriously. We need to define.
I don't have a good definition of performance data.
Okay, well, I do.
So
I don't know if I have a definition, but like say Johnny, say he uses an unkind gesture toward his teacher, that's going to be documented. Say Johnny bounces the ball after the recess person tells him not to, that's a performance.
Okay.
They're going to document everything.
It's behavioral data.
Behavioral issues, every single thing your child does, and that will determine what kind of job he gets or doesn't get. Yeah. Just like anything.
So, as we can see a little bit more about data, I think we got the point. I've referenced every one of the pieces of information in one of my slides. Ladies and gentlemen, I cannot tell you enough. We have the FTC telling us the #1 place for identity theft is anybody under 18. We've got corporations, private entities building the biggest national database ever built. That data is being refreshed every year. As parents, our information is in there. I got upset. And frankly, maybe I'm a little bold right here. If you got kids in school or if you got grandkids in school and you're not upset, then I would say go back to being a soccer mom, go back to being a fantasy football dad, and have fun watching the Super Bowl. Right. While corporate America, not Democratic, not Republican, corporate America takes over the educational system. What blows me away is why more teachers are not upset about their own jobs being outsourced to technology, and why more Democrats are not upset about corporate America coming into the lives of their children. This is not a Republican issue, in my humble opinion. This is not a Democratic issue. This is a child protection issue. Nobody here would let their kid play in a gymnasium that was unsafe. Nobody here would let their kid play in a swimming pool that was unsafe. We're letting our kids play in a data environment that is unsafe. I met with a principal, and I said, you have a tornado plan. As a matter of fact, I saw a tornado shelter sign at the back of this room. She says, yeah, of course we have tornado drills. So they're documented. Fire chief probably comes in, looks at them. You have a fire drill plan. Yep, fire chief comes in, documents them. What is that? That's an audit. They got to conduct those X number of times a year. Anybody in education knows that better than I do. I said, I don't know what you call it in education, but there's an active shooter plan, right? In Olathe, Kansas, the school district I'm in, we just passed $288 million issue. Part of that was to improve security at the schools. She said, yes. I said, what's your data security plan? She looked at me like I was speaking Greek. I said, who do I sue once this data gets compromised? Is it the teacher who conducted the test? The principal? School administrators? School board? Superintendent? Because I'm going to tell you, I'm going to start with all of you. That's where I'm going to start. Right? That's who's liable. That's where I'll start suing people. Make you all go get personal attorneys, and we'll end up in civil court, and you'll all settle, and you'll get some ulcers, and my kids will get their identities restored. Okay? So to me, this is worth fighting for. This is our kids, this is our future. I know we got one other speaker. At the end, I assume we'll have questions. Again, there's a Missouri Against Common Core group, a website. Find what piece or part of this means the most to you and do a deep dive on that piece or part. For me, it was the data. For me, it was protecting my kids. Like I said, my job, I feel, is to protect my wife and then protect my kids and everything else after that. This is about protecting my kids. I wouldn't let them play in an unsafe gym. I wouldn't let them swim in an unsafe swimming pool. They are currently involved in unsafe data collection. All right, thank you very much.